It was supposed to be a perfect afternoon. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows, glinting off the silver balloons that spelled, "Happy 7th, Lily." The house smelled like vanilla and strawberries, the kind of scent that used to make my daughter's eyes light up. I'd spent hours baking that cake myself. 3 layers, soft pink frosting, tiny sugar flowers, because Lily loved pretending she was in a garden. But when I walked into the kitchen after greeting the last guest, I froze. There it was in the trash. My daughter's cake, crushed under paper plates and half-melted ice cream cups. The name Lily smeared across the frosting like a wound. And standing beside the counter, leaning casually against the fridge, was my brother, Daniel. He didn't even look guilty. He just smirked, that same half-smile he's worn since we were kids, and said, "She didn't deserve it, Grace. You spoil her too much." For a second, I didn't feel the floor beneath me. Just the sound of my heartbeat, sharp and loud, and the hum of the refrigerator in the silence. Upstairs, Lily's laughter floated down, pure, unbothered, innocent. And all I could think was how familiar this felt. The judgment, the mockery, the sting of someone deciding what I, or my daughter, deserved. I took a breath, smoothed the front of my silk blouse, and turned to face him. "Funny thing, Daniel," I said quietly. "You used to say the same about me." Camera lingers on her calm face, poised, hurt, but unshaken. The tone shifts, hinting at deeper scars beneath her control. It's strange how one sentence can take you years back. Daniel's words pulled me straight into another storm, a different kitchen, a different kind of silence. I was 24 then. The night I told my family I was pregnant. Mom just stared at me, her lips pressed so tight they almost disappeared. Dad's jaw clenched, his eyes cold, the kind of cold that doesn't come from disappointment, but from shame. And Daniel? He laughed. Loud, cruel, careless. "You? A mother," he said. "Grace, you can't even take care of yourself. What are you gonna do, raise a kid alone?" I remember how my hands shook as I tried to explain, how my voice broke when I said, "He's gone. But I'll manage. I have to." Dad pushed back his chair. The sound echoed like a door slamming shut. "You've embarrassed us enough," he said quietly. "Maybe it's time you learned responsibility on your own." They didn't even look at me when I packed. The rain was coming down in sheets, lightning flashing through the windows as I threw clothes into a duffel bag. Every sound, thunder, zipper, my heartbeat, blurred together. That's when it happened. While I was reaching for my purse on the shelf, something fell, a small silver locket, the one that had belonged to Grandma Rose. It popped open when it hit the floor. Inside was a faded picture of her holding me as a baby and a tiny slip of paper tucked behind it. It said, "You are braver than you believe. Someday they'll see." My breath hitched. I pressed the locket to my chest and whispered, "I hope you're right, Grandma." Then I stepped outside. The cold rain soaked through my clothes instantly, but for the first time, I didn't care. I wasn't running from home anymore. I was walking toward something new. I looked down at my stomach, barely showing then, and said softly, "They'll never decide what you deserve, sweetheart. Not you, and not me." Her voice lingers, filled with both heartbreak and quiet determination as the rain fades into the soft hum of city life. Soft piano begins. The tone warms slightly, hope rising from the ashes. The first few years were chaos. Beautiful, exhausting chaos. I moved into a tiny studio apartment on the edge of Portland, one sink, one window, one small hope that I could somehow make things work. Days blurred into nights. I worked the morning shift at a local cafe, wiping tables with one hand and holding Lily's bottle with the other. The smell of roasted coffee beans became the soundtrack of my survival. Every night, after Lily fell asleep, I'd sit by the window with my old laptop and watch online tutorials. How to frost a cake evenly, how to photograph desserts, how to register a business in Oregon. There were nights I cried so hard I couldn't see the screen. But every tear was fuel. Every failure was a lesson I refused to repeat. And then one morning, everything changed. I met Maya Thompson. She was one of the cafe's regulars, early 50s, classy, always dressed like success itself. One day, she stayed after the morning rush and asked who baked the blueberry muffins. When I said I did, she smiled. Then you're wasting your talent wiping tables, sweetheart. That conversation became the spark. Maya was a bakery owner who'd retired early. She saw something in me, something I hadn't seen in myself in years. She taught me about balance, branding, and belief. Your story is your strength, Grace, she said once. Don't hide it. Build from it. So I did. I started small, selling cupcakes and custom cakes online for my apartment. My first customer was a nurse named Olivia who ordered a small cake for her daughter's 5th birthday. She left a 5-star review and posted a photo. That post went viral in our little town. By the end of the month, I was baking until 3 a.m., balancing orders, invoices, and diaper changes. I called the business Sweet Resilience. It wasn't just a name, it was everything I stood for. There were setbacks, burnt batches, lost deliveries, bills I didn't know how to pay. But every time I felt like giving up, I'd touch Grandma Rose's locket and whisper, "You said they'd see. One day they'll see." And slowly they did. Within 3 years, Sweet Resilience had a small storefront, white brick walls, warm lights, the smell of sugar and courage in the air. Maya stood beside me the day I opened the doors, her hand on my shoulder. "Remember," she said, "you're not proving them wrong anymore. You're proving yourself right." So I stopped hiding my pride, but I still kept my success quiet for my family. I didn't post much, didn't brag, didn't call. I knew they weren't ready to see me as someone who had survived and won. And truthfully, maybe I wasn't ready to face them either. Camera lingers on Grace closing her bakery late at night, neon sign glowing, Sweet Resilience. She looks at it with quiet pride, whispering to herself, "They said I couldn't build a home. So I built a life." Soft ambient sounds of children's laughter fade under her steady voice. It's funny, I used to dream about moments like this. Not revenge, just recognition. The kind where people finally see you. The birthday party was small, just family and a few of Lily's friends from school. The kind of day I used to imagine we'd never have. The house was full of life. Balloons, pink streamers, frosting on little fingers. But when I found the cake in the trash, that laughter suddenly sounded distant. Daniel leaned against the counter, arms crossed, smirk fixed like armor. "She didn't deserve it," he repeated. "Kids these days get everything handed to them." I stared at him, really stared, and realized something. He still saw me as the scared girl he once mocked, not the woman standing in front of him. So I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply said, "Come with me." He frowned, confused, but followed me into the living room. Mom and Dad were there, sipping coffee and making small talk with awkward politeness. The room went silent as I opened the sliding glass door to my home office, a sleek space lined with framed awards, glowing photos of cakes, and the faint scent of vanilla and sugar in the air. Mom gasped softly. Dad's eyes widened. Daniel's smirk faltered. I walked to the desk, pulled up a page on my tablet, and turned the screen toward him. It was my company website, Sweet Resilience. And right there on the homepage, under Client Testimonials, was a photo of a company event. Daniel's company. And his quote, "Best cake we've ever had at a corporate party." He blinked. "Wait, this is you?" I smiled, calm and measured. Every cake, every post, every dollar. My recipes. My business. My life. Mom put a hand over her mouth. Dad looked down, silent. Daniel just shook his head, as if trying to rewrite reality. "You're lying." "You didn't." "I did." I cut in gently. "And while you were laughing at me for being a single mom, I was building something you couldn't imagine. A future for my daughter." The silence in the room thickened. Even the kids' laughter from outside seemed to fade. Mom's voice trembled. "Grace, why didn't you tell us?" I took a deep breath. "Because you wouldn't have believed me. Not back then. Maybe not even now." I gestured around the room, at the plaques, the framed photo of Lily cutting the ribbon at our shop opening. "This is what came from the girl you threw away. From the woman you said couldn't raise a child." Daniel's jaw tightened, his pride fighting to stay intact. "You think this makes you better than us?" "No," I said softly. "It just means I stopped letting you define what better means." He turned away, muttering something under his breath, but the damage was already done. Mom was crying quietly. Dad's hand rested on her shoulder, guilt written across his face. I didn't enjoy it, watching them stunned. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted truth. Because the truth was, I never needed them to believe in me. I needed to believe in myself. I walked to the table, picked up a new cake box from the counter, an untouched one I'd kept aside. The same design, the same pink frosting. Lily's name, spelled perfectly. I placed it gently in front of them. "This one," I said, "is for Lily, because she does deserve it." And without waiting for a reply, I carried it back outside, to where my daughter was waiting, smiling, ready to blow out her candles. The camera follows Grace's silhouette in the golden light, poised, strong, surrounded by laughter again. Inside, her family stands frozen, finally realizing what they lost the moment they doubted her. Soft evening ambience. Children's laughter fades. The narrator's voice becomes steady, resolute. The party ended as the sun dipped behind the trees. The house slowly emptied, paper cups tossed, wrapping paper scattered across the floor. But my family stayed. Daniel sat on the couch, arms folded, staring at the floor like a man who didn't know where to put his pride. Mom kept dabbing her eyes with a napkin. Dad stood near the window, watching Lily play outside through the glass, the same little girl he'd once told me would struggle without a real family. Now he was watching proof that she had one, even if it didn't look the way he imagined. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Mom whispered, "We didn't know Grace. We just thought you needed to learn the hard way." I smiled faintly, shaking my head. "I did. And I learned without you." Daniel scoffed quietly. "So what now? You want an apology?" I looked at him. "No. I want change." He frowned, confused. I walked to the center of the room, the late sunlight warming my face, and said, "I don't hate any of you, but I'm not the girl you left in the rain anymore. And if you want to be part of my life, of Lily's life, there are conditions." Mom looked up, startled. "Conditions?" "Yes. Not punishments. Boundaries." I turned first to Daniel. You don't get to belittle anyone ever again. Not me, not your coworkers, not my daughter. You think mocking people makes you stronger, but it's only ever made you smaller." He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. His silence said enough. Then I turned to Mom. "You don't have to protect Dad or Daniel from the truth anymore. You've spent your life keeping peace that never really existed. Speak up, Mom, especially when it's uncomfortable." Her eyes glistened. I can try." Finally, I looked at Dad. "And you stop measuring worth by appearances. The best thing I ever did for myself was stop trying to make you proud." He exhaled, guilt softening his posture. "Grace, I was wrong." I nodded once, accepting, but not forgiving just yet. "You were. But it's not about blame anymore. It's about what comes next." I gestured toward the kitchen, where Lily's laughter echoed faintly through the open door. That little girl deserves a family who shows up with kindness, not judgment. If you want to be part of her world, our world, it starts there. The room was quiet except for the ticking clock on the wall. Mom stood and crossed over to me, wrapping me in a hesitant hug. It wasn't full of words or promises, just something fragile, like the first step toward forgiveness. Daniel stood up next, still silent, and walked out the door. No apology, no goodbye, just the sound of a car starting in the driveway. And somehow that was okay, because not everyone is meant to walk beside you once you've found your peace. I turned back to my parents, gave them both a tired but genuine smile, and said, "Next time you visit, bring love, not pity." Her voice softens, closing the section with quiet grace. For the first time in years, the silence in that house didn't hurt. It healed. Soft evening sounds, crickets, faint wind through trees. Grace's voice calm, reflective. The house was quiet now, except for the soft hum of Lily's bedtime lullaby drifting from her room. I sank into the porch swing, letting the last golden rays of the sun wash over me. My hands rested on Grandma Rose's locket, the silver warm against my skin. I opened it slowly. The tiny note was still tucked inside. "You are braver than you believe. Someday they'll see." I smiled. Someday had arrived. Not in the way I imagined, with loud apologies or dramatic confessions. It had arrived quietly, in the laughter of my daughter, in the warmth of a home I built myself, in the silent acknowledgement that I didn't need anyone else's approval to feel whole. I thought about Daniel, about Mom and Dad. Change had begun for some, and for others it would take time, or maybe never come. And that was okay. I rocked slowly, feeling the cool night air brush my face, tasting the faint vanilla from the kitchen where Lily had left her small plate of birthday cake. I realized I didn't carry anger anymore. Just lessons, resilience, love, and a fierce, unshakable pride in the woman I had become. I whispered to the locket, to Grandma Rose, to myself. We survived, Lily. We thrived. And no one, not even family, can take that from us. I stood and peeked inside the living room. The house was quiet. The traces of the party, balloons, scattered frosting, tiny footprints, reminded me that life wasn't about perfection. It was about persistence, about showing up every day, no matter how hard it seemed. I felt a lightness I hadn't known in years. For the first time, the past didn't weigh me down. It was a foundation, not a cage. I closed the locket, pressed it to my chest, and whispered a final thought, one I knew would stay with me, one I hoped my daughter would carry too. They once threw away our cake. But that day, I learned, we were never the ones who needed to be saved. We were the ones worth celebrating. Camera pans out to the porch swing, the night sky above, Lily's soft breathing inside. Grace's silhouette framed in moonlight, calm, strong, unstoppable. Fade to black.